Thank you for checking out this edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. You can find all the episodes over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can check out the show on YouTube or at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get all notifications. And if you leave a comment on the video, I will also read that on a future edition as well. You can always email me at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. And now, the Phillip Jordan Show. Well, everybody, welcome in to today's edition of the Phillip Jordan Podcast, a thrilling Thursday edition of the show. Of course, I am Phillip Jordan, Flash from College Football, 98.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama. And you can tell I'm not in my normal locale. Guess you can say we're taking the podcast on the road today on this Thursday edition. I'm going to be joined by John Johnson, sports editor at Dothan Eagle. We're going to look at Troy spring practice, talk what went wrong with Chip Lindsey in his 3 years at Troy following Neil Brown. And we'll also talk new head coach John Sumrall and offense, defense. There's a lot of cool tidbits and breakdowns from John Johnson on what he's seen from Troy spring practice. But after that, I'm going to go over some news and notes, some interesting things I've seen that stuck out to me last couple of days. Now, I will let you know when you watch the conversation from me and John. If you just listen to the audio podcast, there's no effect on you. But you may notice another different location. I recorded this at my day job. I'm not telling you where that's at. I'm not telling you where this location's at if you're watching the video either. But just let you know if you notice a little difference. For the people watching at home, and probably audio sounds a little different. I'm using my microphone, using my AirPods to record this edition of the show. But anyways, let's jump into it with John Johnson and talk Troy spring football. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Phillip Jordan Show. And on Tuesday, we talked Kentucky spring. They are done with their spring. Now we're going to talk Troy Trojans. They are in the midst of their spring. Of course, the spring game for them is on April 23rd. The T-Day game, the annual T-Day game. And joining me is John Johnson, Dothan Eagle sports editor. And John, I always appreciate you coming on the show.
Sure, Phillip. I always enjoy visiting with you.
Oh, yeah. It's always glad to have you on. And before we jump into Troy stuff, I want to congratulate you on, I know Sports Illustrated put the 50 Legend of Alabama Sports Writer Association. So I just want to say congratulations on that. That was from last month.
Well, thank you very much. And a lot of guys that, I grew up with idolizing are on that list and a lot of friends throughout the state. So it is very humbling, and I appreciate you mentioning it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How did that all come about that you found out you was going to be on the list?
Well, this is the 50th anniversary of the association. And so they decided they wanted to do something special for the banquet this year, which is in June. And basically you had to be nominated, and then the list was, finalized. And then, what they did was they released a couple of people each day for a month. And so it kind of built throughout the month. And I was just, very excited to be a part of that. And I've been a part of that organization since 1985. So a lot of people, like I said, that I know in the past that were a part of the organization are going in or were recognized as legends. And then a lot of my friends. And so that's what makes it so special to me.
Absolutely. Just over the years, of course, being a Dothan, Dothan Eagle, what sport did any big moments stick out to you over your career?
I get asked that a lot, Phillip, and I don't know if there's any just special ones that I can just nail down. I mean, because, at a paper this size, you get to cover so many different things, from youth league sports to high school to college, athletics. So it's a wide range of things. You look back you see state championships and youth leagues and high schools, and that's so important to me to see the athletes of our community do well and be a part of that and be a part of their lives in some way. And then you get to see the big college football games as well. Obviously, thankfully, I would say I'm appreciative that I've gotten to cover national championship games in football. You've been there at some of the biggest moments like the kick six at Jordan Hare and just things like all those kind of things they stick out. And it's just, I can't name one or two things. It's a combination of things. I've been very fortunate to cover at a paper this size. Like I said, you get to do so many different things. And that's why I really wanted to be at a paper this size. I realized that at kind of a early age that, if you could be at a paper at this size, you get a chance to do a little bit of everything, but you also get a chance to be a big part of the community, or at least I hope I have been, and make a difference. And so that's what I've enjoyed about this journey at the Dothan Eagle.
And and especially and I tell people one time the Dothan area is almost a great melting pot of fans, because we're so close to the Florida line and the Georgia State line, so you got plenty of Florida State, Georgia, maybe a handful of Georgia Tech fans, and you got Alabama, Auburn. Troy's right up the road. I mean, just an hour from where we're at, basically. It is a good, and all the good high school sports go in this area. And it's got to be too, when you've been in this area, you've been doing it as long as you have, just the relationships have got to be one of the fun parts over that time.
Without a doubt, because I can go to pretty much anywhere in the Wiregrass and know somebody. And that's really cool when you think about it, from coaches or just people you meet at the schools or players or that kind of thing. Whether I'm going over to Kinston or Geneva County or, Enterprise or wherever, you feel like if you have a flat tire on the road, you can call on somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's everybody knows somebody, and like I said, you can say, how do you know me? But you got those connections. That's why I like living here in the Wiregrass. It's such a, great community.
Absolutely. And I'm to the point where I've been doing this a pretty long time now. It's like 37 years that I'm watching kids I covered now, which is really cool. I say, that kid that is playing at Wicksburg now, I remember when his father played at Geneva County. And that's just really cool to see that kind of thing.
I'm sure it is. Jumping into Troy spring practice, of course, it's a new regime at Troy. John Summerall coming in, was at Kentucky, was co-defensive coordinator there. Kentucky was one of the better defenses in the SEC last year. When we talked about Kentucky here on the show the other day, and when they had like the top 5 SEC defense, and that's no small feat. But going from Chip Lindsey to John Summerall, and just real quickly, the Chip Lindsey era. I mean, they never won more than 5 games. Where do you think that just didn't work out for Chip?
I don't know. The culture there, it was never really, it's just so different now, Philip, to be honest with you. I don't know that I really noticed it while Lindsey was there, but you notice it that now that he's not there. And if that makes any sense, when I go to a Troy football practice now, the energy is so high. And there's so much competitiveness and fire between the coaches and the players. I mean, everybody's just going all out. And when you went to a Chip Lindsey practice, it was just a little different. It was a little more laid back. He didn't quite feel like that. Not that he didn't have control, but it just didn't feel like everyone was moving on the same page, I guess. The athletes were there. I mean, if you look back at last year, I would have thought before the season they were going to have a really strong year. And I think the same this year, and it's going to be many of the same athletes, but I think there's just a different mindset. I think they're getting after it like I haven't seen in a long, long time. And I think the recruiting was fine under Lindsey. I think the talent was fine. The Sun Belt's a really tough conference, so if you're a little off, you're going to fall down the line. And they were really close to being very, very good last year, but just a few points here and there, and it never happened for them. And I think the change was necessary, as you know, towards the end. I mean, how many times have you heard a coach booed at Troy? But
yeah,
the last game at Troy, people were yelling down at him, and he was even yelling back up at him, and you knew that was it. I mean, you knew it was it, and you don't see that very often. I've seen a real difference at spring practices. And one thing I've really noticed, Philip, and I went to practice a couple of Saturdays ago, they had lettermen back from past years. Everybody was invited back. And after the practice, they had whoever wanted to come down and say something, former letterman. And it was really emotional. I mean, these were guys from like 30 years ago that were saying how proud they were to be a Troy Trojan, how proud they are of the team. Someone let everyone who wanted to speak. And you could just see a difference in what he's trying to create there is bring the past to the present and bring everybody together. And I think that's big to Coach Summerall. Another thing that I've noticed that I did not notice with Lindsey practices, the practices I've gone to, there have been prospects there watching practices. He's bringing in lots of recruits just to be on the sideline and just see what we're about. And I think that's going to be really helpful in the recruiting process, this year and years to come, because he's really getting people involved early.
Yeah, and when you look back, pre-Lindsey, I mean, you had two pretty beloved coaches there too. Talking about, the Lindsey hollering back at the fans. I mean, when you had, Larry Blakeney and Neil Brown, I mean, those guys in Troy, we talk about walking to somewhere. Those two are pretty, looked at upon very highly. Obviously, fans love those two coaches. So that was, there was going to be pressure on Lindsey, but going into this team, I love quarterbacks. So, is it pretty much a deal where Gunnar Watson is kind of, from what you've seen, looks like the guy that's going to be their quarterback, or could one of these new freshmen kind of push him, you think?
I thought going in, Gunnar Watson is absolutely the guy without a doubt. And I still would be shocked if he's not the starting quarterback, because I think he's a good one. I think he's solid. He's got a good arm. He doesn't have a lot of speed or anything like that. But, he can get the job done. He's proven that. What surprised me is how good Quade Hawkins is, a redshirt freshman who last year didn't play, or if he did, he maybe came in for a snap or two. Hawkins is a really strong kid from Bainbridge, Georgia, and he has all these passing records and things out of Bainbridge. And really impressive, Phillip, how he throws the ball and gets the ball downfield, and he's got a lot more mobility than Gunnar. I feel like Gunnar Watson will be the starting quarterback. He's a junior. He's got the experience. But, man, if he stumbles at all, Quade Hawkins absolutely could be the guy. And I think going forward, he's a guy to really keep an eye on. Kyle Toole has transferred out or went into the transfer portal. He was the number 3 guy. So really, it's been Watson and Hawkins all spring. With Toole really was behind them, and I think he saw the writing on the wall. There's a guy named Will Karn. He's not going to be a factor this year, I don't believe. He's a redshirt freshman. And then the kid from Brantley coming in, Tucker Kilcrease, will be here in the summer, a good quarterback. But, I mean, you don't expect him to be pushing for any kind of playing time really this year. So, yeah, Gunnar Watson, a good, solid quarterback, but Quade Hawkins is right there. I think they get two good ones, really.
Yeah, and you look at Gunnar Watson. I know last year Taylor Powell come in, the Missouri transfer. There was some split time. But the year before that, I believe he was 5th in the Sun Belt in passing, which – that's no small feat because the Sun Belt is full of good quarterbacks. So, I mean, he's shown that, that ability to be good. And, I think last year overall, Troy was 5th in the conference in passing. So, I mean, and they've got some weapons to us there as well. About the skill position players of Troy, who's standing out of what they got coming back? I know they got 10 starters returning from last year on that side of the ball.
Well, I think you're going to see a whole different style of offense this year, because he believes in running the ball first and passing second. Whereas with Lindsey, it was pass the ball all over the field. So, this helps the quarterbacks too, because Gunnar Watson's not going to be expected to just, be tossing it around all over the field, or Quade Hawkins or whoever the guy is starting. They're going to be running the football a whole lot. And so that's going to be the key. And you got Kamani Vidal coming back as the star running back, but there's others there too. I mean, Jamontez Woods is a good running back. I think a guy who's going to be a difference maker this year that I've been waiting on for the last couple of years who hadn't done anything is Charles Woods Charles Strong. I knew that didn't sound right. Charles Strong, who transferred from Texas A&M. I think this is his 3rd year there, and no one knows who he is really, because he hadn't hardly had any touches. And I don't know if it was a situation where they didn't feel comfortable with him in the offense or what. But this spring he's gotten, when I've been there, he's been kind of like the second guy behind Vidal. And he's a big, strong running back that I think can get the tough yards inside. And he's someone that I think will be a real difference maker this year. I may be wrong, but I think keep an eye on him, Charles Strong, and behind Vidal and Jamontez Woods. Like I said, there's another running back I can't think of right now, that Billingsley, that was good last year as well. So they got the weapons in the backfield. They've got still good receivers, and they're going to obviously get the ball downfield to some of those guys. But it's going to be run first this year. And I think a big key there is the offensive line. Obviously, if you're going to run first, you got to be able to block. And Dylan Bradshaw being gone, the Enterprise native that had been center there for the last couple of years and was so strong, that's going to be a real key to see who gets in that gap and plugs it, and you know how important the center is in an offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure who that's going to be yet, and I've got my list here because I'm still learning these guys. But Jake Andrews is a veteran who's been across the offensive line, and he's probably going to be the center, or it looks like right now he's probably got probably the guy that you're looking at to fill that role. And then they got Austin Stidham that's been around a while at tackle. So they've got some veteran guys. And, but if you're going to run the football, you got to have the guys to block for them. So I think that's going to be a key going forward to see how they do and produce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that center, he's basically the quarterback of the offensive line. I mean, he has so many responsibilities. So that guy, you get that guy straightened out, the red offensive line should fall into place. On defense, 9 starters returned, and they were a really good defense last year. Led the Sun Belt in sacks. They were top 5 in points per game allowed and yards allowed. And they've got a lot of guys coming back. Will Chilo, I know Carlton Marshall's coming back. I mean, they got guys in secondary. They've got a lot of good guys coming back. So, and it sounds like from what I've read on your reports from some of the scrimmages at Troy, the defenses have had good days so far. They've led the way. So, what has been sticking out to you with this unit?
Without a doubt, this defense is going to be really, really good. I mean, and you said it, they got all these starters back from a good defense of a year ago. And this is where the schools like, let's say, a Troy aren't losing a lot of folks to the transfer portal, or they're having seniors that stick around, for their super senior years. So you got a lot of veterans. Carlton Marshall obviously is a small guy for a linebacker. But if he was playing for an Alabama or Auburn with his stats, he's gone pro. But you got guys like that aren't quite the level probably I'm not saying Carlton Marshall won't be an NFL player, but he's got a reason to come back and play another year and prove himself again and again and again. And Troy's got players like that. They're older guys that have been through it, and they're really good. And the thing I've seen at practices is, man, they're fast. They're all over the field. The secondary's been really good. One scrimmage, I think it was either I know it was 3. It might have been 4 interceptions, and it was a short scrimmage. It was kind of like a half scrimmage that they did towards the end of practice. The secondary is going to be really strong. The line is strong, like you said, with people like Cholo and folks like that. Then you got Marshall and Jade McDonald, 2 of the guys at linebacker. You got good defensive ends, Richard Jibinor, who used to play at Auburn, and folks like that. Man, they're going to be they're going to be very good on defense. So if they can punch the ball in some on this kind of offense that they want to run, I don't think they're going to score the kind of points that Troy's been trying to score in recent years. They're going to be more of a low-scoring offensive team, but I think they're going to base that around having a defense that can hold the opposition.
I know you had there was an article in Dothan Eagle about A.J. Pierce, which is, a local native for us here in the Dothan area. Where do you see him, lining up with this unit?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be first team, but he'll be right behind. I mean, and that's the thing. They're going to have good depth across the defensive line. AJ's been around there a little while now, and he's battled some injuries. I think he's finally healthy. They really like him, and he's gonna be a factor out there. He sure will.
Oh, finally, as I said, on the 23rd, T-Day at 4:00, Troy will play their spring game. What are, we look at these spring games, obviously, you're going to be very vanilla offense, usually what you're going to see, you don't see a lot. But what would you be looking for when Troy plays their spring game on the 23rd?
I will be interested in seeing if they can move the ball against a very good defense on the ground, because that's what's going to be their bread and butter. And if it's kind of like when Alabama's practicing, if that offense can move against that defense on normally a really good Alabama defense, they're not going to see much better. I think of that in a lot of ways with Troy. If Troy can move against their defense in practice and do things against that defense, they ought to be able to do it against most of the people they play, because this is going to be one of the better defenses, if not the best, in the Sun Belt. And I think comparable to a lot of, SEC type schools. I really do think they're going to be really good on that side of the ball. So let's see if they can pound them. Let's see if they can move it between the chains. You're going to always get the passing, where you get the long pass here or there that you connect on. I think they're going to use the tight ends a lot more, and I think that will be interesting to look, to watch. There's a tight end that transferred from Sanford, and I can't recall his name right now, but they're sending him on a lot of long routes. And I mean, you know, they're going to utilize their tight ends. So I think that's going to be a big part of the offense and something to look for as well.
It's going to be interesting. One, if you have a good defense travels. So when you go on these road games in the Sun Belt, and if the offense ain't clicking, the defense, like I said, defense in all sports, I believe, football, basketball, whatever sport you got, the defense usually travels. So I think it's an exciting time. I know a lot of energy, like I said, for Troy, new coach, and John Sumrall, what he brings to the Troy Trojans is going to be interesting. And John, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show, as always. I appreciate you coming on talking about the Troy Trojans. If the listeners or viewers wanted to follow you online, where can we find you? And how can they check out the Dothan Eagle?
Yeah, obviously, DothanEagle.com is our website. My Twitter is Eagle Sports Ed, and the Ed is for editor, to help you remember it. We have a Facebook page. If you do Facebook, it's Dothan Eagle Sports, or just look for Dothan Eagle. There's two choices, because pretty much whatever is on our website ends up on Dothan Eagle Facebook, and I end up posting things on Dothan Eagle Sports. Also, there's a Troy Facebook page. It's Dothan Eagle Troy. So, I mean, if you want to even follow that, I post most of the Troy stuff on that. So there's a lot of different ways. And, of course, you can pick up the print edition around the Wiregrass. So there's a lot of avenues to follow us on. And, of course, we appreciate your business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm an online subscriber.
Absolutely.
I check out that.
More and more people are going online. So that's another avenue. Obviously, people want to read their news quickly on their phones or however on their computers. So, yeah, online subscriptions really aren't that expensive. I'll put a plug in there, and that's kind of the way of the world now. So we need that. So I appreciate that, Phillip, and anyone who is a subscriber, because we need your help to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to. And, it helps me out during high school football season. Y'all do great coverage for that, too. Troy coverage, all over the place. Great coverage by Dothan Eagle overall. And John, this has been great. Like I said, having you on once again, and I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime down the road.
Okay. Thank you, Phillip, and anytime.
All right. Thanks once again to John Johnson for being guest on today's show. Always enjoy talking to John, and as talked about there being in the 50 best sports writers state of Alabama all time. Congratulations to John once again on that, and a lot of fun talking Troy football with him as well. Not just an SEC show anymore when it comes to football. We talk a little bit of everything, different college football stuff here. But anyways, some news and notes over the last day or so since I last talked to you guys. And I will give y'all a heads up next week. Instead of doing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, it's going to be going Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But every week, 3 podcasts a week, bringing you some great football content. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all that. And maybe at the end of this, I'll let you guys know who you can expect potentially on next week's shows. So looking at some SEC-related stuff here, JT Daniels – college football, really. Just as I'll say SEC college football. But anyways, former Georgia and USC quarterback JT Daniels is going to West Virginia. That was one of the rumored teams that he was looking at, the ones he's visited. Oregon State, Missouri, a few weeks ago there in their spring game, and now West Virginia. Now, this kind of makes a lot of sense when you look at with the Graham Harrell situation. He is the offensive coordinator there at West Virginia. Me and Michael Rinker on Monday's pod, we talked about West Virginia. And anyway, so you look at that. He spent time with Graham Harrell at USC, so he's familiar with his air raid offense. But West Virginia does return their entire offensive line, a lot of experience there, so he'll be well protected. I will say this is a big get for Neil Brown. I'll also say if JT Daniels can stay healthy, which has been a question because after his freshman year at USC, his second year, ACL injury, missed the rest of the year, and that's when Keaton Slovis came onto the scene. And then this past year with Georgia, played the first 3 games, had multiple injuries throughout the year, and Stetson Bennett took it, never gave the job back, and he won the national championship. And JT Daniels was not able to get on the field due to the ACL injury from USC last 4 games of 2020. I mean, he lit it up, win over Cincinnati in the bowl game. That's why he had a lot of, excitement coming on him. Coming into the season last year, Heisman talk, first-round draft pick, and obviously that did not happen. And again, Stetson Bennett. He's a really good quarterback. He was 7-0 in games that just start for Georgia, which he didn't play in a lot of the bigger games other than the Clemson game. And of course, he won the bowl game against Cincinnati off the 2020 year. But if he stays on the field for all 12 games, I think West Virginia has a great shot at winning 8, 9, maybe 10 ball games in the Big 12. But if he's not able to stay healthy, that's not good for Neil Brown. I don't think Neil Brown's on the hot seat at West Virginia from stuff I've seen, but I do believe he needs to win more than 6 games. He needs to have a big year. Sad news on Wednesday afternoon, coming to you on Thursday morning. Former Auburn quarterback Jeff Klein passed away. He came out Saturday. He had back problems, back pain, went in for MRI, and then it turned out to be more than that. And just prayers, and thoughts out to his family. Teammate Cole Cubitt's one that broke the news on Twitter on Wednesday, and I've got it right here, the tweet. We lost a good one today. It was an honor to play in front of you, a privilege to be your friend, and a joy to watch the husband, father, and coach you had become. Rest easy, 9. Your boys will know your legacy. We love you, War Eagle. He was an assistant football coach and a teacher at Lochapoka High School, and he played quarterback at Auburn from 1999 to 2001. Got his most playing time, I remember, in 1999. That was an interesting year. That was Tommy Tuberville's first year at Auburn. Gabe Gross left the team. Ben Leard was lighting it up first 3 games. He gets injured, and Jeff Klein comes in, and he plays. He threw for 1,139 yards and 7 touchdowns that year. Alabama did sign a 3-star offensive lineman, transfer, 6'4", 315-pound Vanderbilt offensive lineman, Tyler Steen. Of course, he's transferring to Alabama over other schools. He started in 10 of 11 games last season. He'll be competing for that offensive tackle spot, and this is just another transfer that Alabama has added. Of course, they added cornerback Eli Reeks from LSU, running back Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech, and then wide receiver Jermaine Burton from Georgia. So Alabama's dipping into the transfer portal to get some players, and good competition there they're going to have there for tackle. Other stuff on Alabama, Nick Saban had some comments on Wednesday about NIL. He says create a situation where basically you're buying players, and he's not wrong. It's really a wild thing here. I don't think it would be as wild if we weren't at the same time. The transfer portal stuff wasn't hitting the same time as NIL stuff. It's just crazy. I mean, players enter the portal, people lining up, paying them. I mean, it's pretty much doing what was already being done. I mean, and the schools aren't supposed to be involved, but they are. It's just, I believe there needs to be some, ruling on this. Someone needs to step in. That's why college football needs a commissioner. Somebody create a rule that there's so much you can do here. There's no limitations on this thing. It's just whatever you want to do. And as Nick said, it's the Wild Wild West, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. We do have some spring games. We actually got something interesting. We have some football to watch this week, but we do have some spring games coming this weekend. On Thursday, we'll be on tonight. If you're listening to this on Thursday morning, the Florida spring game playing over at 6:30 on the SEC Network Plus. I am not a fan of the streaming thing with SEC games. Put them on SEC Network. You can put SEC baseball and softball over on streaming for a few days. It will not hurt anything. Arkansas, they play theirs at 11 o'clock on Saturday. Miami, they'll be on ACC Network. Mississippi State, SEC Network Plus, also 11. Ohio State, 11 o'clock, Big Ten Network. Georgia plays theirs at 12 o'clock, ESPN 2. So that's one SEC. If you're going to watch on regular TV, you get that one. Michigan will be playing, Michigan State plays there at 1 o'clock, Big Ten Network. Wake Forest, 1 o'clock, ACC Network, and Alabama, 2 o'clock on the SEC Network Plus. Now, that's not all of them. That's just the real big ones. I'll be paying a lot of attention to on Saturday. More football stuff. The USFL is kicking off or returning this week. Some people will look at minor league football. I'm a football junkie. I will be watching these games this weekend. Saturday night, there's only one game Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And when I give y'all guys, I say this, you never know when you get a new audience. Whenever I give times for games, I'm Central Time. I'm in Alabama. I'm giving you Central Times. New Jersey Generals will play the Birmingham Stallions at 6:30. NBC and Fox will simulcast that one. Sunday, triple header. Houston Gamblers, Michigan Panthers. That's 11 a.m. on NBC. Philadelphia Stars, New Orleans Breakers. That'll be 3 o'clock on USA. And then Tampa Bay Bandits and the Pittsburgh Maulers will close out the action at 7 p.m. on FS1. I'll be watching all of them. The coaches, you got Mike Riley coaching New Jersey, Todd Haley coaching Tampa Bay. Of course, he was a longtime Steelers offensive coordinator. He did spend some time as the Kansas City Chiefs head coach. Mike Riley been at Oregon State, been at San Diego Chargers at one point as a head coach there. He wasn't bad there either, but he was a longtime Oregon State head coach at Nebraska. He's a good coach. Philadelphia, Bart Andrus, he spent time in the Spring League. New Orleans, Larry Fedora, which many may remember him as head coach at Southern Miss and then North Carolina. Pittsburgh, Kirby Wilson. Birmingham, Skip Holtz, who spent time with some multiple college teams. Of course, the son of Lou Holtz. Houston, Kevin Sumlin, who was very successful at A&M early on. Johnny Manziel, that fell off, was not all that good really at Arizona, but he'll be coaching the Houston team. And Jeff Fisher will be coaching Michigan, longtime NFL coach for the Titans, and also the Rams. So it'll be fun. Check that out. And the XFL announced their coaches on Wednesday. Bob Stoops is coming back. I'm not going to get too big into that quite yet. So that's Wade Phillips will be in there as well, and Jim Haslett, another guy that's got NFL experience. But that's kind of what I'll be keeping my eyes on this weekend. The SEC and the college football, all the good stuff on the spring game stuff. And then, of course, I'll sit back and watch some spring football when it comes to USFL. I'd rather watch that than the NBA playoffs, just to be perfectly honest with you. And for next week, big week on the podcast, we're going to have some pretty interesting guests Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Monday's podcast, and I'm actually taping that on Thursday night. And that will be with John Vogel from Football Sapient. He will be on. We will be talking NFL draft, quarterbacks, receivers. We'll also kind of hear his story about doing stuff, covering the draft, what's his passion there. So John Vogel will be on Monday's pod. Wednesday, I'll be joined by Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes. We are going to recap the Ohio State spring. And then Friday, hopefully, this is not confirmed, but, we're in talks, and have a Georgia Rider on Friday's pod. And the following week after that, I've got a big guest potentially planned for Monday. But I'm going to wait and surprise you guys with who that guest is when we get there. So awesome guests coming up here on the Phillip Jordan podcast. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcasts, platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast. You can check out the Phillip Jordan podcast. Check it on YouTube. Please subscribe over there. Hit the bell to get all the notifications and leave a comment on the video. We'll read that on a future edition. And you can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope everybody enjoys your Easter. And I'll talk to you guys on Monday. And as always, let kindness be your compass.